we now have our super guest,
Yay.
Pamela Price. Sherry, would you like to introduce her?
I certainly would. One of the things I would describe of Pamela is perseverance. She has overcome a juvie record and foster care to argue before the Supreme Court, challenging racial harassment, and she won. In 2016, when she and I met, she was elected to the almost totally white Alameda Democratic Central Committee, and she garnered the most votes in 2018. In 2018, Gabby Dolphin and I stood outside the Posey Tube with huge signs with her face on it, because she was saying change the face of justice in Alameda County, because she was running against an incumbent district attorney, which had not been done in 30 years, believe it or not. People didn't even know that that was an elected position until she ran in 2018. So last November, she tore down another barrier by winning the election to the Alameda County District Attorney, despite the enormous amount of money and political pressure that she had to face that was trying to defeat her. So I'm so happy to introduce and welcome the Honorable, I love saying that, the Honorable Pamela Price. Pamela.
Yay!
Thank you, you guys. I am Madam District Attorney. Yeah. Thanks to your perseverance and, all the things that we did together to keep pushing through it all. I mean, when we ran in 2018, it was heartbreaking. And Sherry's right, like nobody even knew the DA was an elected position when we ran. And so it was an education campaign. And ultimately, when the times changed in 2020 and we had the racial reckoning, people were ready. And so I launched in November of 2020. I had to make a decision in July of 2020. And some of you may recall I was very reluctant. I was trying to find somebody else to do this. Like, really, do I have to do this again? But God had another plan. And so I jumped in. I took my first donation in November, and then we launched in January, and you guys immediately endorsed me. And we started working, and we worked across the county. And certainly I appreciate that the work that was done in Berkeley and Oakland in the north part of the county was the anchor for us to be able to launch into the southern part of the county, which is what we needed to do to be able to run across the whole county and win as well in Fremont and Livermore and Dublin and Hayward and Castro Valley. Alameda County's 831 square miles. And those of us that live in the northern part, we tend to not realize that when you come across that San Mateo Bridge, you are in Alameda County, and it is a whole nother world down there. But it's our world, and fortunately, I was elected to represent the whole county. And so I've been in office now a month. It has been quite the learning experience, not so much from a personal kind of growth, but just finding out about the office and learning that there was a great facade, you all. We all thought that, or the impression that we had was that this was a well-run organization, that, it had the history of Earl Warren and, Tom Orloff and Nancy O'Malley. And at least I thought that these folks kind of and certainly my opponent made it seem like, you know, they really know what they're doing, and I'm the little dummy who doesn't really understand how this thing is run. And in this month, we have discovered that this office is a poorly run organization, and needs a lot of work. Systems that I have come to expect as a manager, as a small business owner, as a lawyer running a law firm, they don't exist in many ways in this office. So that we are building a lot of infrastructure internally. And I knew that it would be important for us to go in at the outset to address whatever the issues were internally, because I understand that culture eats policy for lunch. We cannot walk in the door. We did not walk in the door saying this is the new policy, because we needed to be able to get in there and find out what is the culture of this office, and how do we get people who may want to be supporters, how do we empower them to be able to go a different direction. You all may have heard me during the campaign saying that this organization is like a giant ocean liner going one way. And we got on board and we made a left turn. And you don't just turn an ocean liner overnight. It's a process. And so we went in there with the understanding that we had to engage in a process. What we did not understand was the lines of accountability, the lines of authority, the lines of communication are broken in this office. And so we have had to create new procedures, a new infrastructure. For instance, we have to create our own HR department. There is no HR department inside the DA's office. You have 450 employees and no HR department, okay? There's a lot of entanglements in terms of the finances. Some things we're finding are very disturbing. You may recall that before I could take office, my predecessor asked the Board of Supervisors to transfer $20 million from an unknown account, unknown to me because she didn't tell me about it. She wanted to move $20 million from an account that the DA's office had to the general fund, and then the Board of Supervisors would transfer that money to the Family Justice Center. Well, the Family Justice Center Foundation, which is the nonprofit that runs the Family Justice Center, Ms. O'Malley is the executive director. And so we found a lot of financial irregularities. That was the first one that put us on notice that some things have been done right under the nose of the Board of Supervisors, some with the concurrence of the Board of Supervisors, that are not financially sound. We have been able to identify. My first question was, well, where is the account that has $20 million in it that you have not told me about? And I got there and I found the account had more than $40 million in it. And that's a large amount of money that was not disclosed to us. There are a lot of different accounts and like I said, a lot of financial things that we're still having to straighten out. We're canceling some contracts and pulling back and questioning a lot of what was done under the prior regime. Additionally, some things were done just in the last 2 months after the election. Some you've heard about. We reopened the police cases, 8 cases this past week. And we were in the process of doing that, and at least 3 or 4 of them were closed in the month of December. There were actually more than 4 that were closed in the month of December by my predecessor. And we said, well, wait a minute, these cases had been pending for some time. We thought it was appropriate for us to take a look at it. So there was a lot of things that were done kind of in the last days of the prior administration that we've had to take a look at. And certainly my vision is different from how the office has operated. I want to have community engagement. There's no mechanism for that. I want to I'm charged with the responsibility to implement the Racial Justice Act. There's no mechanism for that. I'm charged with the resentencing act and the requirement that people are entitled to be resentenced as a result of the legislative changes. The mechanism for that needs to be enhanced. I'll say that. It was very slimly resourced. And that's what we found. The things that are important to me and I think matter to this community have not either don't exist or they've been poorly resourced. For instance, the collaborative courts that we all heard about so much over the last few years, for which Alameda County has been lauded for, at least according to some people, that we have the most collaborative courts in the whole state of California, and we've been the leader in collaborative courts. Well, I got there and found that we have one attorney assigned to collaborative courts. One. The CARES Navigation Center, we had one attorney assigned to help oversee the CARES Navigation Center and one staff person. We had one person assigned to the Behavioral Health Court. The Clean Slate program that the office had boasted about had gone down from, they said they used to have 6 days or 8 days, and now they were down to 2 days. So I am, as you know, a person that believes you have to put your money where your mouth is. And so I'm immediately having to invest in alternatives to incarceration, whether it's pre-plea diversion, post-plea diversion, mental health diversion. Like I said, the collaborative courts had one lawyer responsible for all 10 collaborative courts. And then the resentencing that we are mandated to do, we have to create a process of reentry for people who we are bringing home. We are responsible for having them released from these institutions, but there's no infrastructure to support them when they are released. So there's a lot. I have a great team, and they have just done a great job of tackling every problem, coming together as a team. We are working really hard. Everybody's working 10 to 12 hours a day just to get on top of things. We are looking at cases, not just the cases that we needed to reopen, but cases where we know we've got to resentence juveniles. We've got to resentence folks. We've got to deal with people who are overcharged. And we've also got to create more resources for victims and survivors of crime. We've learned that if a crime goes unsolved, meaning which most homicides in Oakland are unsolved and lower level crimes are unsolved, and a person is then referred, they are a victim of crime, they are eligible for victim witness services, that person is referred to a claims unit that is not trained in how to deal with victims. And is not really, technically, we're the only state, what I've been told, we are the only county in the state that actually does it like this, where we require people who do not have court dates or do not have people who are charged with having caused them harm, that they have to deal with claims people as their victim witness advocates. It is not done like that anywhere else in the state of California. So we have a lot of work internally just to clean this thing up and make it something that can work, and then we can move forward with some policies. So it's a lot, but I asked for this job. You all elected me to do this job, and I'm enjoying it. I'm still smiling. I've had a chance to interact with all of the police chiefs, and that's a whole nother project that I have to engage all of them around police accountability, as well as how do we shift their resources into more alternatives to incarceration. I know that they want to support the investment in mental health services, and we've got to train them and make them aware better users of the resources that we have through the CARES Navigation Center. And as we bump up the investment in the collaborative courts and the mental health courts, we need them to also come along with that process. So that's where we are. It is a process, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Would you please, if you want to ask Pamela a question, would you please raise your hand so we can recognize you? And I'd like to start off, Pamela, you also have a new sheriff in town who's brand new. Have you been able to coordinate with that department too? And what are your thoughts on having a new sheriff and a new DA?
We have been in conversations together with other folks in terms of a joint roundtable. Judge Smiley of the Superior Court, the presiding judge, has done a great job of creating what he calls the justice partners. And so all of us who are part of the public safety department, as well as behavioral health, we are, as well as the Alameda County Bar Association, we are all in that conversation. Yesenia and I have, and we've been in other conversations with the other chiefs. We have not had direct conversations yet about how we can work together, but she certainly has expressed that to me, and I've expressed it to her. We're both just really kind of busy trying to get our houses in order. Knowing that, you know, as soon as we get our houses in order, we're going to be able to work together. And, you know, she has certainly been supportive. We've had occasions where we needed to get inside the jail to address some issues, and she did facilitate that.
Super. I see Kalima has a question. And then
yes, hi,
Susanna.
Yeah, hello, Madam DA Price, and thank you, Sherry, and everyone at Our Revolution. So I have extended an invitation. I'm council member for the city of Emeryville. Some of you may not know, and I've extended an invitation to Madam DA Price to come to Emeryville to speak to our police chief and our public safety committee and to our public about what progressive policing can look like. And so she has accepted our invitation. And right now we're just figuring out the logistics. And so I just want to thank Madam DA Price for that. And I know she's building her Avengers, and over here in Emeryville, we're building our X-Men. And so and I want that to also let Our Revolution know that I want Emeryville to be considered a place for Our Revolution and all your progressive work and what you've done in terms of your activism and community organizing. And I want Emeryville to also be a home for you, so that not just Oakland and the city of Alameda get your love. So the question I have is the communication strategy. I'm always concerned about people who misinterpret the valuable work that you're doing, especially when you're doing the internal operational work. And you know, as an entrepreneur, that sometimes we could be so like in the muck trying to fix things that whole like fluff of marketing and communication and, you know, PR and that sort of stuff. Sometimes we skip those things. And I had an opportunity to talk to your communication campaign strategy officer, and just told them how, you know, I'm thankful for all the work that he's done for your campaign. And I was wondering, are you thinking about the like how you're going to communicate some of these changes and and this like this miracle work that you're doing to the public, if there's any ideas or strategy as to how to do that? Because the last thing I want is folks to be putting words in your mouth.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we were fortunate to bring on board Ryan Lalonde, who was our campaign communications director, and he is now officially the communications director for the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. And he has a team, which is also great that they are able to capture the work that we're doing. They're watching what we're doing. You know, I have said we need to roll. I want to be very intentional about how we roll out the changes. And so, we were very intentional about creating the public accountability unit and being very considered about what cases we were looking at and how we would roll that out. We're being very considered about the Mental Health Commission and how we're realigning the mental health services support that the district attorney's office engages in. And so, there are a number of things on the agenda. And as you say, truly, I'm an entrepreneur. I get deep into it. Like, we got to get this fixed. It's got to be organized. And so we're fortunate that Ryan is there and he's able to tell us, okay, you all need to talk about this. Or, we go through a process where we say, is it ready to be released? Not yet. Let's do it. I tend to be the one that says, let's hold it. Ryan is doing a great job of, getting the website updated, which also was quite a surprise that it's not an official county website. I mean, that's a whole nother story that we had to deal with that. But he has taken a firm hold on the communications and the the resources inside the DA's office to be able to communicate to people. So he'll be consistently, releasing press releases that talk about what we do. We're also trying to make sure that we keep a line that we're able to give. Just generally, I want to talk to people. So I have to be able to do that, but in a personal way outside of the office. And so we're still working that out too. But we appreciate that everybody's watching and certainly using social media to amplify the messages that we are able to put out there.
Thank you. Susanna? And then Mark.
Thank you, Sherry. Hi, Pamela. Congratulations again. This has been a long time coming. So I did some work a little while back for David Moroff over at SF Pretrial. And frankly, before I started working with him, I had no idea these programs existed, which are essentially diversion programs that are keeping, from what I understand, a lot of people out of jail who shouldn't be there in the first place. And keeping them employed, keeping them with their families while sorting out their legal issues. So my question is, are you working with any types of programs like that in the community or have any intention of doing so?
When you say programs like that, what do you mean? I'm not sure if I know what you mean.
Yeah, SF Pretrial, it's a diversion program where essentially they have a lot of people on staff who work with people who have been arrested to come up with a solution that doesn't have them serving jail time or sitting in jail awaiting trial, that sort of thing. Diverts them out to mental health programs, substance abuse programs, finds them housing. I mean, the housing part of it is a key thing that he works on. There's a lot of synergy there. So those types of programs.
Yeah. So that's what I was saying earlier. Alameda County has 10 different programs that fall under the rubric or under the caption of collaborative courts. When we got there, there was one lawyer assigned to the collaborative courts. We have assigned 2 more lawyers, and we've also brought in another lawyer for the behavioral health court. There was 1 lawyer assigned to the behavioral health court. We brought in 2 mental health professionals who are working between the CARES Navigation Center. They've done an evaluation of that, as well as the entire mental health division, which is loosely though 3 different programs. There's collaborative courts, and literally there are, if you look at the org chart that my predecessor gave me, there are 10 different collaborative courts, all being staffed by 1 lawyer, which is ridiculous, right? It's just ridiculous. You have the behavioral health court, which has, there's actually 2 parts of that, but also being staffed by 1 lawyer. So we've got to, yes, we are definitely about making sure that we're using and creating, and we don't have to create. What I really find is that I have to redefine what does it mean to be an alternative, because the criteria example, for behavioral health court is way too restrictive. The criteria for most of the collaborative courts is way too restrictive. So we are retooling those and you know, realigning all three parts of that division into one, because that's the other thing, they operate in silos across the DA's office. So yes, the short answer is yes, but the process is much longer.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Dave has a lot more people on staff than you have with the collaborative court station, and he is an outside vendor. So I think that's probably helping San Francisco because they probably have similar issues internally. So anyway, yeah, thanks. And I'm glad you're doing that because when I kind of got into his program, I'm like, wow, everybody should know about this because this is a seriously good option for a whole lot of people. So thank you and congratulations.
Mark?
District Attorney Pamela, congratulations. Many congratulations. I was just thinking, you said everyone's watching, and that got me thinking, you know, what you're doing is historic. It's historic reform, historic transformation. And I'm thinking that's a great subject for a captivating and important documentary with a uniquely brilliant protagonist like yourself. And also, since what you're doing is going to be a model for communities around the nation, highly useful for our nation's culture. I just wondering if anyone has been so intelligent to hit you up for the filming rights of what you're doing right now.
Yeah, no. 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 And some people have said, well, we want to follow you. And I'm like, you're not moving fast enough. I'm moving too fast for most people. Trust me, the film crew would have a hard time keeping up with me. My security can barely keep up with me. So there's so much to do. Yeah. I mean, it's not that we're not willing to do it. It's just, it's a lot. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. And Gabby Dolphin, who I mentioned earlier. Gabby, you have a question for Pamela?
I sure do. Hi, Pamela. Congratulations. Huge hug. Oh my goodness. You did it, girl.
Gabby. I know.
Hi. I'm all for the documentary. I'm all for, oh my God, just spreading the word and hallelujah. It happened. But a couple more mundane thoughts. The first is, had you been able to connect with other progressive DAs like Larry Krasner to see what he ran into when he first started out? And secondly, I have no picture of what is going on now, what you have found in the DA's office, and given that as the starting point, what the quote, I don't even know if this is the right word, metrics would be, say, a year, 2 years out in your while you're there as DA, just a sense of motion, how to watch for signs when they're being reported. If you know what I'm saying, just to see how things are moving.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have been embraced by the movement, and you all know I was always a member of the progressive movement of district attorneys. And I recall when my opponent tried to say he was there. Oh no, one of the other people in the race said he was part of the progressive movement, and we looked and said, when did you join? Where did you come from? It was hilarious because it was like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. So, you know, Larry Krasner endorsed me, and he's been very supportive. I am currently, the reason I'm sitting in the back of a car is because I'm in San Diego. I was just at a conference this weekend sponsored by Smart Justice, where myself and Dinah Becton and George Gascon joined progressive legislators for a weekend, a policy retreat weekend. And so, yes, I'm connected at the hip to all of them and have everyone on standby if I need to call them. They've all been incredibly supportive. And then I'm also now a member of the family of fair and just prosecution, which includes not just our DAs here, but DAs, progressive DAs from all over the country, Kim Fox and Wesley Bell and folks from Santana DeBerry. I've met people from all over the country that were elected just like me and are doing things. And so, as I said during the campaign, we're not starting from scratch. And a lot of this is not, we're not reinventing the wheel. We have so many resources available to us. So for me, the metrics from a year from now will be that we have a functioning office with, you know, is infrastructure where we have an HR department, okay? Where we're not operating in silos. We've created the kinds of programs that actually do serve the community, that we have a functioning collateral courts program. The courts have indicated that they are more than willing to expand the use of collateral courts, but there's not been an interest in that. Another program that I've been approached about is using, the DA's office has never prosecuted landlords for unlawful evictions. And the city of Alameda, where you live, my darling, your city attorney has offered to be a partner with us, and your city attorney wants to prosecute unlawful evictions. And he, you know, has asked me as a new DA to join him in that effort. And I intend to do that. I intend to focus on landlord tenant issues and housing issues. I intend to make sure that we're creating an office that works for the people. Our victim witness advocates, they need to focus as much on the children who are impacted by this system as we do adults. That's not happening right now. And so there's so much room for improvement. And I can tell you, it's from everything I've seen, it's a low bar. I'm going to be a great district attorney, okay? Because it's a low bar based on what exists now.
Oh,
Sherry.
thank you.
whatever-
Let me, Rivka had her hand up, Carol, and then we probably need to.
Yeah, we do need to keep moving.
Yeah,
Okay.
but let's have
Hi,
Rivka
Pamela.
talk.
Sounds like you're doing great.
Hi,
And
Rivka.
hi, I posted a few posts back in the chat that Linton Johnson, who worked on Pamela's campaign, he and I are talking currently to try to put together a team outside of the DA's office, a civilian team, the Purple Flag Club, that will respond to attacks and misinformation and you know, out in the world, in the media and social media, that we want to have a whole core of people who would be ready, you know, and will follow what Pamela is putting out, but that we want to have other people, you know, average citizens who will respond when there is fake news about Pamela out there. So if you're interested in being part of the Purple Flag Club, I put my email in the chat. Just let me know, and you know, it wouldn't be time consuming. Just every now and then we'd mobilize the club to respond to some development or some attack or some information. And one other thing, I was at a rally yesterday, Pamela, and I met Stephen Taylor's grandmother, and she hopes that eventually you will get to Stephen Taylor's case. So I know you had to be strategic and start things. Great to see you.
Yes, Rivka, thank you. With respect to Stephen Taylor's case, this is something we found. That case is open. It was filed. There has been no one assigned to work on the case for more than a year. There are major cases in this office that are not receiving attention. And so we are definitely trying to, planning to change that and to get lawyers in gear on the cases that we feel will have an important impact on this community. And certainly Stephen Taylor's murder is a case that it's already filed. It just needs to be prosecuted. There are some major cases that have been referred to the DA's office from the Department of Justice that I was appalled that they've been sitting there for a year. Nothing has been done. There's a lot like that. It's unfortunate. And I appreciate the effort and the importance of the Purple Flag Club and having allies out in the world who could amplify our message. You all know that we won this election and we won this seat by changing the narrative, educating people about what a district attorney does, what justice should look like. And unfortunately, as the status quo and people who support the status quo, they're still out there. I tell folks all the time, when people in the South changed, segregation was outlawed, the segregationists did not just vanish and disappear into the air. They no longer ruled the day, but they continued to hold those views, and they continued to transmit that kind of racism to their children. And it has continued to, be pervasive, unfortunately, in the society. And so the fact that we won does not mean that people who want to use fear and are racist and don't believe that everyone should have is entitled to justice and still believe that punishment somehow works, and they don't believe in restorative justice. These folks have not disappeared. They are out there, and any chance they get, they're going to try to shift the narrative back to one where they undermine really the progress of justice. And so we have to all be vigilant about the messaging, about communicating, not just on social media, but with family, with friends. We are blessed to live in a great, large county, an incredibly diverse county. And there's lots of voices that need to be at the table that have never been at the table. There are a lot of issues that have never been addressed in our criminal justice system that are going to need to be addressed. And so it's going to look different. It's going to sound different. And we need to help our friends, our neighbors, our family members understand what real justice looks like. And so it's so important that we're communicating all the time. So thank you, Rivka, and thank you all again for having me and for being there and for doing the work that you're doing. It is not just about an election. It really is about pushing the narrative forward to make this community better for all of us. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Pamela. And you have our support, and I'm so glad that Rivka has brought that up, because it's one of the themes of this meeting, is that it isn't just the election. We want to be there for our candidates and for the movement going forward. So thank you so much. Love to see you. Anytime you want to talk to us, we're here.
Okay, and hopefully I'll be back home tonight safely. Then I go tomorrow to another conference, so there's a lot of travel, a lot of moving around. But trust me, we are working very hard to make this office do what it's supposed to do.
We'll buckle up. We're with you.
Okay, thank you guys. Take care, everybody.
Thanks. Happy New Year.
Okay, Happy New Year.
Okay.
Mark, did you?
Safe travels,
did you wanna
Pamela.
So we're having a little change. That was so great having Pamela here. It always is, but today was really, she's now elected after 4 years or so that we worked trying to get her elected. And anyway, thank you, Pamela. So we need to get moving on now. Mark Van Landet, who I know you all know Mark, and he's part of our board. He's going to talk a couple minutes a little about fundraising, and then we're going to move on to Amir Shergill. We're getting behind time.
All right. I'll try to be
Go
fast.
for it. Go for it.
Purple flag member reporting for duty, Rivka. So our Revolution East Bay in 2022, we moved mountains in the November election. Over 70% of our candidates won. That's an amazing success rate by any measure. And we did it through door-to-door voter contact. We did it through in-person voter engagement, phone banking, texting. We did targeted Google ads and targeted Facebook ads, I think for the first time for our candidates, hugely powerful. Organizing works. There is no replacement. There's no shortcut. Organizing is everything. 2022 was a hard fight. We expanded our reach last year out into Contra Costa County, into the southern parts of Alameda. We fought big money interests. We won against corrupt incumbents. We protected progressive champions. We defeated corporate money all over our local elections. And it cost us. We left it all on the field. We sort of depleted our savings. So our big ask tonight, we need all of you here to renew your membership to Our Revolution East Bay. Give another Bernie $27, maybe give a little bit extra. This upcoming year, we're going to be engaging in fights for tenants' rights. We're going to be building on local victories around the Bay Area Green New Deal. We're going to recruit and support the new generation of progressive champions. And 2024 is coming and interesting things might happen. But all of this, we need you. And for those who always ask, every penny you donate goes to the movement. Our Revolution East Bay is an all-volunteer organization. Nobody here is getting paid. There is no overhead. Everything goes to forwarding our issues and to our candidates. And so we humbly ask your help, your involvement, your donations to keep things moving. And what we're doing, it really matters. What all of us are doing really matters. Bernie helped blast open the doors, and now progressives are taking power. It matters that Pamela Price is district attorney. It matters that Devin Murphy is Mayor Pinole. It matters that Janani is representing Oakland. It matters that Mike Hutchison is protecting schools. It matters that Laura Nakamura is stopping corruption in Concord. When progressives win, the people win. And with that, we want to give all of our appreciation to all of you. These progressive victories were because of you, because of your commitment, and because of your vision for a better future. So share that with us. And so the big ask for tonight is renew your membership, give a little bit tonight. It's really appreciated. And the struggle continues. This movement doesn't end. We keep fighting. Thank you, everybody. Back to Sherry, back to Carol.
Okay, I'm just quickly going to say the next person that's going to introduce anybody is the co-chair of Our Revolution East Bay, Susanna Williams, who got a new Jeep today. Go for it.
Thank you. I'll be off looking for mud puddles pretty soon. It's been fun. Less than 24 hours. Okay, so I have the privilege of introducing the next speaker, Umar Shergill. Umar and I are both delegates, and on the executive board of the California Democratic Party, where Umar plays a very key role in helping hold our elected CDP officers accountable to the Progressive Caucus, where he is the chair, and all of us progressives that are fighting this good fight. And there's a lot of us, not enough, but we're working on that. Umar never fails to say yes. Thank you. I do not give him a lot of notice because we're so good about timely things here, but it always works out awesome. Always says yes, and God, I cannot thank you enough. In his free time, he's an attorney over near Sacramento. You say that in your free time. I know how much time this other stuff takes. So Umar is a fearless champion of progressive rights. He is going to talk to us about the that was the recent Adams election, and answer your questions. And Umar also posts amazing food photos on Facebook. And I'm so going to show up for dinner some night, I swear. So without further ado, we'll take it away.
Hey, everybody. And yeah, it'd be wonderful to have you all over for dinner. Yeah, it's nice to be with you today, and especially on a day where you're welcoming back DA Price. And it's a testament to all the work that you put in. Look, the East Bay and OR East Bay in particular did a lot of grassroots organizing to get their candidates elected. And it's nice to welcome those folks back. And especially with the DA Price, who's really, shining a light and seeing where some of the money is, where people weren't allocated, cases that are being ignored, programs that aren't being funded. It's a game changer. So it's nice to see the fruits of your labors being discussed like that. It's pretty awesome. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the delegate elections that just that are more or less done. We're just waiting for some of the results. But I know that OR East Bay did a lot of work sort of organizing, but just for me to get an idea, maybe raise your hands electronically or in the video if you know what the delegate elections were about, you were involved, you voted, you were a candidate or whatever, just so I can get an idea. I know that Alfred Twu was here, who did a lot of work, and Alyssa Victory and others. So I see a lot of raised hands. So that's good. So I won't spend a lot of time sort of explaining what it is, the delegate elections, but essentially, these are the delegates that we elect to go to the California Democratic Party and help decide, the endorsements, the leadership of the party, the resolutions and stuff like that. But for OR East Bay, what it means especially is that they decide in your area which candidates get the endorsement of the party. And, if you look at folks that were endorsed, like Aisha Wahab, without those delegates, maybe she doesn't get endorsed. And the same thing happens all around the state. So the process, as far as progressives are concerned, with our organizing, we did really well, again, across the state with, putting together slates in every district, sending out texts and emails, and we provided, not through the Progressive Caucus of the California Democratic Party, but separate from that, we provided some statewide infrastructure to tell folks who were endorsed, where to show up, how to show up, and who to vote for. And so we did a great job organizing under some really difficult circumstances. What we have seen again this cycle, consistent with last cycle, is that whenever the party can save money and disenfranchise voters, they will. And when I say the party, this is really a one-man operation when it comes to making these decisions. The chair, Rusty Hicks, decides when to make the horrible decisions that disenfranchise voters. And the way the party's set up, he has, unitary executive control. He certainly, takes input from others, but when these decisions are being made on the fly, it's really his decision. And going back to last cycle in 2021, we had, over 1,000 ballots that came in from folks by mail. They came in late after the arbitrary deadline set by the party. And Rusty just said he wasn't going to count them, even though we knew that they were late because of, the unfunded post office during the Trump campaign. And, those ballots were coming in late. And we actually, folks like you and the folks that you elected to be delegates, the executive board of the party, we actually had to organize a, special statewide meeting to force those ballots to be counted. And it was only when we called that meeting, had it on calendar, that Rusty relented and then counted those ballots, which ended up changing some results around the state. And we were hoping this time around, that lesson being learned, that there would be better decision making, but it actually has gotten worse. We set up a fairly robust statewide program where you could vote in person, or you could register online to get your ballot sent to you and vote by mail. A process that, you're going to have some hiccups, but it should work. But what happened again this time around, we had hundreds, maybe thousands of ballots arriving to voters late. And when we put the party on notice of that some ballots were arriving one day before they're supposed to be filled out and returned and received back, right? So an impossible timeline. The party just refused to provide any extension or to provide any avenue to get a replacement ballot, because we know that hundreds, maybe thousands of people did not even receive their ballot. So you think about the North State that was looking at, an earthquake aftermath that had horrible storms. Folks are out of their houses. Some houses were destroyed. People could not get, hours away to vote in person. The party just refused to make any accommodation. There were a couple of forms that went out, and maybe some folks might have gotten replacement ballot, but there's no attempt to go to all the people that registered and say, hey, we know there's some problems. Here's a way to get a replacement ballot. Going to extend the deadline a week or two and really make sure everybody votes. What we've seen from Rusty at every turn is whenever he has an opportunity to disenfranchise voters, he takes it. And the reason that's done is that the more people vote, the more progressive outcomes we get. And Rusty's not interested in progressive outcomes. He was very interested in holding unitary authority in the party. So that's just the way it's been for the duration of his chairmanship. And we really shouldn't expect it to be any different. So that's a downer. But look, we still did a great job organizing. There are some places in the state where the in-person ballots, voting with 95% progressive. So our people showing up. So we're going to wait on these results to be announced in mid-February, and then we'll see how it goes. We're already making a record so that we can challenge some of these elections, challenge some of these results. But, you know, I've sort of been describing up until now the sort of administrative problems which were systemic, and all of these problems, they fell most heavily on immigrants, people of color, people that don't have, you know, great access to internet, people that have difficulty following forms, you know, going online. The process is just made very difficult, that when you went online, you tried to type in your information, it would mismatch, you couldn't get registered, there's very little opportunity to get it corrected. And whenever that happens, we tend to have the votes then dominated by white educated voters, which is exactly what Rusty is all about. There wasn't a lot of language assistance, and sort of the coup de grace on that. The worst part of this whole process was what came out late in the election process, is that there's a sort of shadow unknown group that called themselves CADEM for All. So that's California Democratic Party for All, CADEM for All. And they used that word CADEM, which is the same as the party uses. We use cadem.org, they use CADEM for All. And this word CADEM is the intellectual property of the party. It can't be used by other folks. But what we found is that this website was set up with the use of Rusty's Google account, and that the endorsed folks that were in this statewide project, you know, some of them were progressive, some of them weren't, some of them were on our slates, some of them were not. But if you looked at the statewide numbers, the folks that were endorsed by this CADEM for All project were almost no Muslims, almost no Sikh, almost no Hindus. There are very few South Asians in general. The Latino numbers were way down. And if we had an opportunity to look at more biographic data from these folks, probably more people of color were probably shut out. That if this group, CADEM for All, if they are successful statewide, it would mean the decimation of representation for people of color and South Asians. And that's a project, you know, sort of backdoor endorsed by Rusty and the party, because they're allowed to essentially steal the CADEM name. So if you think about it a different way, if any one of us was to set up tomorrow a website that said Disney for All, we're selling, you know, entertainment products and cartoons and movies, it would immediately be the subject of litigation by Disney, right? And if someone was to set up, you know, a website that said, you know, Protestant Church for All, immediately the Protestant church would say, hey, these people are not associated with us. We know these are just ideas, but they're not our ideas, and these are not our people. But when CADEM didn't do that, what they're saying is that it's basically a free-for-all for anybody to steal party intellectual property. And if there's one role that the chair is supposed to have, is to protect the party brand, protect the party name, protect our endorsements, so that we know who is us and who is not us. And when they allow the party to be subverted in this way, it's really a substantial gift. It's a campaign contribution directly to this alternative slate of candidates, many of whom were just not progressive in any way, and many of whom were clearly, you know, against progressive ideas, and really against the values that the Democratic Party is supposed to share. So when you make a massive campaign contribution to them, that's us. That is my labor. That is your labor as Democrats, as progressives, when we build the party brand by saying that we are Democrats, we run under the Democratic Party name, the party should not be then giving that away to random people to make up their own random websites. So what we've done is we have asked the party to engage in an independent investigation describing the communications between party representatives and this group, and to litigate against this organization to ensure that they don't use that name. And we have seen so far that the party has just been completely silent, and that's on Rusty. In addition, we have called on the party to look at the issue of blank ballots. So in-person voting, when you went to show up to vote in person, there are obviously going to be blank ballots there. And what we've learned, despite our notice sort of a month ago to the party that they need to get a hold of this, what we saw is that there were really no audit controls, it seems. We've asked the party now to show how many were printed, who the ballots were given to, how many were returned, how they were returned, to keep track of these blank ballots. Because what we saw is that it looks like some folks had an opportunity to get a blank ballot so they could vote appropriately, and some folks didn't. And when you have that inequity, obviously that can have an effect on election results when some folks are able to vote and some are not. So we've asked the party to investigate this. I won't ask you to hold your breath. The party has never been a place where progressive, well, not never, but let's say at least during Rusty's time, hasn't been a place where progressive voices are heard and honored, and that transparency is engaged, and that we lift up democratic ideals and values. So that's a big downer, but here's some good news. And I'm happy to take questions on any of this. But if we move on from the delegate process, what I hope folks are already paying attention to statewide is the US Senate race. We're going to have some work ahead of us really over the next few months. We have a corporate candidate in Schiff, then we have progressive candidates like our own Barbara Lee from the Bay Area, and then Katie Porter, and then Rokunda said he's in the mix. And we're going to have a lot of work to do, and we can talk about that later. But I hope you all are leaning in to getting engaged in that process. So thank you very much for giving me a little bit of time. I tried to get it done quick so that we can get on to other items. But I'm happy to take questions.
Anybody have any questions? Please go ahead and raise your hand. Going once. Instead of not seeing any hands, I do have another little happy note. At least in Contra Costa County, a lot of progressives got elected as delegates through the Central Committee. So I'm hoping that happened in other areas as well. So another little teeny silver lining, because that hadn't happened 2 years ago. So okay, I'm not seeing any hands for questions. You did such a good job of explaining everything.
Sherry's got her hands up.
We got a question. Joaquin,
You're
muted.
muted. Unmute.
Oh, hi. Question about the Senate race in California is supposed to cost anywhere from whatever, 30, 40, $100 million. Is there any way the party can say put restraints on spending?
The party could do that, but they're not going to. The party's a big fan of corporate money. The leadership at the top, Rusty, took $6 million from the medical industry in order to bury the party's endorsement of CalCare. I took $450 something thousand from fossil fuel companies, even though we have a supposed party ban on fossil fuel money, and he used that money to elect fossil fuel Democrats. So expecting the party to do anything on corporate money is just a waste of time. They are completely embedded on the idea that money is the most important thing in politics. And their most important role is really just cleaning corporate money and delivering it to their candidates.
What if the candidates said, okay, we're not going to take any corporate money? Would that make a difference? Some of the progressive candidates like Barbara Lee or, Rokon or you know, what if they made a pledge? Would that affect the fundraising?
Yeah, I think they all have, everybody that's going to be in the race is going to be a candidate that says we're not taking corporate money directly into our campaign accounts for this campaign. You know, we've seen already Schiff and Lee and Porter and Rokana, those are the sort of the four major ones, and they're already on board with that. But the thing with Schiff is that, okay, he may say he's not going to take money in this Senate campaign, but he has in the past been a big recipient of Raytheon money and, you know, war money and also, you know, insurance money and you name it. So if he's already has like 20 million in the bank and a bunch of that is corporate money, does it really matter whether he takes some now?
May make some difference.
Yeah. Thank you, Joaquin. I appreciate it. Sherry?
Sherry, you have a question?
Amar, one of the things as a new progressive delegate, I was lost because there's so much kind of party stuff going on. And you as kind of the head of our progressive group and the caucus, is there any way that we can kind of, once we determine who the people that were elected and the people that are coming in through the other ways, can get some more communication on what their job is and how to kind of be a force to be reckoned with?
Yeah, for sure. We'll be doing some organizing before the convention will be in at the end of May. So once we get all the new names confirmed, which will probably be in March, I imagine that'll be the deadline for sort of folks to be appointed. Yeah, we'll definitely be bringing folks together, talking about what's happening at convention, what are the key issues there. But I got to tell you, the convention that's going to come up this, you know, in the end of May, I don't think there's going to be a lot of really important delegate votes there. There'll probably be a second convention later in the same year, later in 2023, because the 2024 primary is so early in March that our endorsing convention will be in October or November of 2023. And that's going to be the big item where we decide, you know, which Senate candidate gets endorsed. So that'll be a really big one. I mean, I'm sure that coming up in May, we'll have, you know, an opportunity to network for folks to be in the same space. And there'll be some resolutions, I'm sure, and candidates will be there. But as far as, you know, what we're going to vote on, I'm not sure there's going to be a lot important to vote on there. But we will definitely have some stuff happen a few times before then to get folks organized.
Thanks.
No worries.
Thanks, Summer. Thank you, Sherry. And Sherry, if you're not on the CADM delegates unofficial page, check with me and I'll hook you up. Good stuff posted in there. Thank you, Emma, for being here and for answering our questions. I don't see any more hands up, so back to you.
I saw a couple. I'm sorry, I saw a couple in the chat real quick. Just on the U.S. Senate race, Barbara Lee has basically indicated she's running, although she has not done an official announcement. Porter is announced. Schiff is announced. It seems like Kanda is making himself still in the mix, but nothing confirmed there. And then the other question there was about the progressive vote split between Lee and Porter and potentially Kanda. I think that's really the name of the game, is that you cannot go into the party endorsement process or the primary next March with 2 or 3 progressive candidates on the ballot, because then they will lose to Schiff. And we, especially East Bay, will have to do the work in the summer or maybe early fall, leaning on 2 of the candidates, or at least every progressive candidate except one has to get out. And we're going to have to be very explicit about that. And I've already had my own direct conversations with Kanda, Porter, and Lee on that issue, that we can't all be in the race.
Agreed. That is one of the weak points of Democrats in general, is we'll have 18 people running in a race and there'll be 1 Republican, and oh, well, imagine that, they beat us. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's critical.
Yeah, I mean, in the top 2 primary, that could happen. Sorry.
Oh, I see another hand up. Carol, do we have time for another question? Trisha?
Yeah, this will be the last question, then we got to move on.
All right, thank you. Trisha, you're on. Trisha? Can you unmute?
Yes, thank you. Can you folks hear me?
Now we can,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Amar, this question was for you. I saw you kind of keeping everything in the air in terms of what new candidates were showing interest. And so now we have Ro Khanna, of course, Katie Porter. We have Barbara Lee, who's has put interest out. And I think we're all a little worried about Schiff. My question is, do the folks around here really believe that Barbara Lee is a viable candidate? Or like for Amar, are you waiting to see? The last I read, she had about $50,000 in the bank, which is a little bit of chump change. She has her politics are a lot closer to me, so I actually really dig her. I'm just worried that she's possibly going to be put forward as a spoiler campaign to unleash some of the momentum that Katie Porter has. I understand there's some bad blood between Katie Porter and Pelosi. Pelosi had her stripped from the Financial Services Committee. So I think Pelosi wants to push Adam Schiff forward. And if they can get Barbara Lee to run a little bit of a spoiler campaign, and that way they can keep Ro Khanna at bay and say, hey, Ro, you shouldn't be getting in if Barbara Lee is coming in. And it also takes some of the momentum away from Katie Porter. I'm just not sure that Lee has what it takes to make that 50, 60, $70 million raise. What are your folks' thoughts? Are we hoping that there's some consolidation so we have one final solid person going up against Schiff, one solid progressive up against Schiff? What were your thoughts, Amar? I might have missed the beginning of this session.
No, those are really good questions. We could probably have an hour talking about this. So I'll try to be terse just in the interest of time, but I'll just say this. I have spoken directly to Congresswoman Lee, and she is in it to win it. She is not in here because somebody else wants her in or because of Pelosi or Porter. And I would say the same for Porter. She's in it to win it too. So I would just put that out of your mind. They both have done the work and are excellent candidates. But when it comes to fundraising, yeah, Barbara Lee has her work cut out for her, but her campaign account is small because she spent so much time raising money directly for others, right? She could have kept a few $1 million in the account, but she didn't because she really walks the talk and raises money. But I think what you're going to see when she rolls out her campaign, that if it is as progressive as we expect, and it's as national as she can make it, because she is a national name, that if you go for the small dollar progressive fundraising, she can be like so many other candidates around the state. We have seen around the country, seen that the biggest fundraisers around the country are always small dollar progressives, and she could be a name like Fetterman that was previously unknown and then rolled out of the gate and as had one of the biggest fundraising campaigns in the nation. So I wouldn't discount her at all, but we will find out within a few months exactly how this is going to go.
Thank you, Trisha. Carol, I think we're out of time for questions.
Yeah, we are. Thank you so much, Susanna. And thank you so much, Amar. Okay, we got to move along now. We've got several people who are going to speak about what's happening since their elections. And then we're going to hear from Hank Pelletier. So let's get started. Laura, could you be first? Susanna, you want to introduce her? Unmute.
Oh yeah, so Gordon here. Gordon was going to do the intro, but
I don't think he's here.
not seeing Gordon. Okay, this is going to be really short and sweet. I've known Laura for a while now. We worked together in the trenches for Our Revolution before the Our Revolution Contra Costa group merged with OREV. And she's been amazing. We kind of worked together to stop some things happening in Concord with the Cena developers, and the progressives probably know that that is not a great development company. And I'm being extremely generous when I say that. So we recently, all the progressives went out there and pounded the pavement, and we helped get Laura Nakamura elected to the Concord City Council, and she is already making us extremely proud. Because the city of Concord has backed off from that particular developer, and we're going back to the drawing board. So Laura lives in Concord. She's an amazingly cool person. So Laura, you are on.
Great, thank you. And, just to piggyback on what we were just hearing about campaign finances, many of you know Kenji Yamada. He did a breakdown on all the money that was spent in my District 5 election here in Concord. And you'll be interested to know that it was my opponent spent, and those people who supported him spent $38 per vote, whereas my campaign spent almost $8 per vote, and we won by a 12% margin. It was about grassroots. It was about hitting the ground, knocking on doors and making those connections at the doors that really made a difference. And so I just wanted to piggyback on what I was hearing about how much money is in people's campaign war chests, that it's not all about money. And we know, as Bernie supporters, we know that it's a lot about people power. Thank you, Susanna, for mentioning the Concord Naval Weapons Station. I will add that on January 7th, we had a 9-hour meeting. We heard 2 presentations, hours worth of public comments, and then continued the meeting after 9 hours. We continued it to January 28th, where the 3 women on the council all agreed that the term sheet was not acceptable, and we voted to let the exclusive negotiating agreement with the Concord First Partners expire. And that was the Concord First Partners was a coalition or a group of partners that involved the Sino Discovery Builders, Phil Tagami's company, CCIG, and Lewis Group. And we are now going to, as the council, we are going to be moving very quickly to push this for the process forward. What we were hearing from residents and a lot of the public comment was that the integrity and the transparency in the process was really important and lacking. They found it very lacking. And so, and there were some interesting things in the term sheet that had to do with affordable housing and how they felt that they could create affordable housing using junior ADUs. And there was not a lot of data to support that a single family residence would use a JADU to house people who, like a family, at affordable housing rates. So that was one of the items there. The other thing that I think is really exciting that I want to, that I'm quickly moving away from the Naval Weapons Station vote, and I'm moving into focus on the housing element. Our housing element we have had in Concord, we've had since 2016, we have had countless years of public comment from tenants saying we need protections, we need the rents are too high, the evictions are too high. And the state is looking at our housing element update with through the eye of equity, of course, the fair and affordable housing. I'm forgetting what it is. It's FHHA. But we have enough evidence and trends in Concord to put the council. We have 3 votes for putting forth rent stabilization and just cause eviction into our housing element, and it's really exciting to me. So by the end of the year, we should be having that happen in Concord. The terms of what that looks like is to be determined, but I'm really hopeful that that will be something that we'll be able to accomplish here in Concord in my first year. And I think I'll add that I've been already appointed to the Youth and Education and the Recreation and Culture Affairs committees. I've been appointed to the Association of Bay Area Governments, ABAG. I am a second or an alternate for the CCTA, the County Connection in our area. I'm an alternate on the Marin Clean Energy Board, and Assembly Member Tim Grayson is forming something called the Green Empowerment Zone Commission, and I have been appointed to that. I'm also going to be chairing a group, the working group for a homeless strategic plan, and I'm excited about that. I'm hoping that we will be able to move quickly on that for to be able to come up with solutions for our unsheltered neighbors. And I was unmuted,
Thank you,
right?
Laura.
For all of that.
No. Oh, yeah. That's like, I've had nightmares like that. Anyway, Carol, I think you're actually chairing this. Sorry, I jumped again there.
Okay, would anybody like to ask anything of Laura? Okay, Sherry, is that a question, Sherry? You're muted.
I can't find my reel for real hands, so I'm just clapping for everybody. I was really pleased, Laura, to see that the developer-based plan, that you're revisiting that. Have you had enough time to see alternate plans, or how is that moving forward?
Sherry, that vote was a week ago. We are still trying to, I don't know, regroup if is the right word, but the city has reached out to the Navy because this is an enabled use project. The Navy is not going anywhere. They know that we're moving forward, so they're still with us. We're not losing them, and we are going to review everything that happened in our first go round with a different developer, and now with this particular developer, and incorporate what we've learned from all of that into the next developer selection. I
did a little research in something called the Vienna project.
Okay.
And I would recommend that you just kind of take a look at that. It's actually Vienna because it was done in Vienna, and it's got a lot of public housing in there where the actual Vienna actually participated in creating it. And
thank you.
So, thank you so much for getting elected. I'm so delighted to have you.
Thank you for all your help. I just
you.
made a note about the Vienna project.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating me. I don't know if we can ever do it, but it does fascinate me. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, Joaquin has a question also, and then Sherry is going to introduce Devin Murphy.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Joaquin, can you unmute, please?
Sorry. Yeah, just a question about the CINO project was the only one that would commit to union labor and local, no?
No.
Well, anyway, that was my understanding after reading multiple articles in the paper that they were the only ones that would do union labor on the building.
No,
So
actually, yeah, that's a great comment here for me to be able to address. In August of 2021, when 3 developers came to the city with their proposals, each one of them had already agreed and signed project labor agreements with the building trades. And what I'm hearing is that they were identical PLAs. I don't quote me on that, but I'm still trying to learn more about that. But each of the developers did have a PLA, so that was an interesting part of the process. Is that the building trades already were very satisfied with the agreements and the developer. So that, which is great. That's what we want in Concord. We want to make sure that we have good labor union jobs.
Yeah, I've been following it for a long time, and all the media, the newspapers all said, oh, CINO was the only one that would do labor. Anyway, you might want to check with that. I know Kalima had an article I mean, about public housing instead of handing off the money to developers, if there's any way to do public housing. There was an article in, what was it? Yeah, Kalima, who's running for ADEMS and Emeryville City Council, he might have some ideas on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'll put my email in the chat if anyone wants to send me any information. If anyone has feedback about how our process went in Concord and for next steps, that would be great to hear.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, we are getting tight on time. Marisol, could you ask a short question? On point.
Of course. I just wanted to know if what other, does the city council in Concord have any ideas about what alternative developers would sort of meet the requisites that you're seeking in terms of for the development project, as well as, still upholding those PLAs?
Yeah, I think, Marisol, that's a great question. It's, again, it feels like it's been 6 months for me. But that vote was only a week ago. And up until that vote, there was not a lot of thought. I mean, to negotiate in good faith. It's really incumbent upon us to not be thinking about, well, what if and what's next. So it's only been a week. We are going to be starting to have those conversations.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to move on. Sherry, could you unmute and then introduce Devin?
Okay, I'd be happy to. Most of you on this call associate me with the city of Alameda, because that's kind of where I started my California political meanderings. But now I am the proud resident of Pinole and delighted to introduce the mayor of Pinole, Devin Murphy, who is an outstanding young man and has also broken all kinds of barriers. And he's going to tell you all about it. Devin, can you unmute and tell us all about you and your plans for Pinole?
I will. Good evening, everybody. I'm in my car. I hope you can see me. I'll unmute and I'll take myself off, on video. When Sherry asked me a couple of days ago to join, I was like, of course, I want to share about all the work we're doing in Pinole. And I hope can everybody hear me okay? I know that's the age-old question on Zoom. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
I
and see you also.
Oh, wonderful. So first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here. I am so proud to be the mayor of the vibrant and beautiful and powerful town of Pinole, where we're doing some amazing things. For those of you who don't know where Pinole is, we're north of Richmond and right next to Hercules. Again, we're a city of 21,000 or almost 21,000 according to the recent census. And we're actually the 6th most diverse city in the state of California. And as Sherry mentioned, I am just so proud to be of service in this city as the first African-American mayor, the youngest mayor to this point. But also very important to my heart is the first elected official that has been endorsed and won an election from the Pinole Progressive Alliance, which many of you all know are in partnership with probably you and several other coalitions every day to make sure we're building a more equitable California. So, I wanted to briefly just talk about 3 things that really we're doing as Pinole, and would love your partnership, your, questions, your comments, but also your, again, your ability to really work with us to institute these big, visions that we have for our city, but also that we have for the region. First, I think I want to break the ice if we haven't entered this conversation to talk about housing. I know that's a big conversation, right? What we know is that we are in a housing crisis, and we know that many of our cities, our point in time numbers have increased. Pinole is no stranger to new housing, but we certainly have been really stagnant in the last decade or two around building housing and a portfolio of housing that allows all communities to enter. So what I'm really excited about is that we have moved forward, of course, adoption and also certification of our housing element like many cities. And we're actually set to more than likely beat our RENA numbers, our regional housing needs assessment numbers, by more than 50% in the next cycle. And that's because in the last 2 years since being on council, we've approved over 500 new units. And we've actually approved more housing in the last 2 years than we have in the last 20 years in the city of Pinole. So again, I'm so excited to make that report to you all, because we are making sure that even as a small city, even as a bedroom city, a city of, again, small of 20,000, we are working with so many folks to make sure that we build housing like many cities in the Bay Area should be doing. What I am very excited also to mention is that we're not only building all types of housing, we're building affordable housing. And what that means is that we were able to elevate, for example, an appeal to State Senator Skinner and Assembly Member Buffy Wicks, which is now going to fund the Satellite Affordable Housing Associates project in the city of Pinole. This is a 100% affordable housing project where 33 new low-income housing units will be built. And that construction is actually anticipated to be starting in mid-2023. So again, we're excited to not only build a portfolio of housing, of course, like we're building single-family homes, we're building condos, we're building townhomes, but we're also building 100% affordable housing right here in our town. And we're really proud to get that construction started this year. So again, we're looking forward to building more. If you all know Pinole and know Fitzgerald, we're now moving, we're transitioning an old Kmart that's been closed for 12 years, a commercial zone, into 214 units of housing. Again, that is mid-market rate housing. There's about 13 low-income units there, but we are working with all people, partners, and of course the grassroots groups to make sure that we have not just housing for the rich and the wealthy, but certainly housing for all people, because we believe that Pinole should continue to be as diverse as we want it to be. So that's the first update. I wanted to give an update about climate action. I'm very proud to be a climate mayor. The reason I ran for city council in Pinole was to build a more green economy in our city. And one of the ways I'm doing that as mayor now is by really setting forth and moving forward Pinole's first ever climate action and adaptation plan. We recently had our first workshop, which was basically an interactive workshop of both booths, but also a way for our community to come together to tell us what they wanted out of our climate action and adaptation plan. And some of those things were already set in stone, but this is really a community and public engagement method for us to understand how to use our tax dollars to move forward climate action. We invite the public to our next workshop. Right now, you can give online feedback and surveys, but our next organized interactive workshop is going to be on April 27th at 6 p.m. at the Senior Center in Pinole. We say the community because just like our public meetings, we ask that residents and interested individuals come join us. We don't want just this to be, Pinole in a silo. We really benefit from all of our community regionally coming together to support our issues. So again, would really encourage folks to come out to our next community workshop on April 27th at 6 p.m. It's at the Pinole Senior Center, but there also is information on how to join in Zoom. We're going to really be moving forward in terms of all of our programming and our workshop engagement in a hybrid model. So there will be, investment in both the public and being in person, but also virtually if folks are interested. The last piece I'll say on climate action is I get the very, very beautiful benefit of being a mayor who will be opening a new fire station in Pinole. It's actually reopening a fire station that was closed 13 years ago. And so March 1st is our first day where we're going to be contracting out with Contra Costa Fire District to open a fire station. That's Station 74. So we'll now have 2 fire stations that are fully serviced in the city of Pinole. That will result in about a 30-second enhancement of response times, as well as additional and enhanced emergency medical response services. Many of you probably know Pinole is there are a lot of seniors and the elderly who live here. So it's really important that, as much as we have, wildfire preparedness and support, we also have emergency medical services as well. So on March 1st, I will be happy to start that. And on March 4th, which you all are invited to, and we'll have these on our social media accounts, we'll be having our open house, as well as our grand opening and ribbon cutting. And again, we're just really excited because this is at the nexus of really elder support, as well as climate action and wildfire preparedness. And we're looking forward to working with the county to make sure we make these services both accessible to as many people as possible, but also to make sure they're sustainable, which is really important for us for the next decade. Great. And then my last thing is, of course, as a progressive mayor, couldn't do it without our small business community. A lot of these ideas are always supported, and I'm so moved because of our Pinole small business community by their engagement, their recognition that we do need to, transition to a just economy, that we do need to be thinking about ways to be more equitable. And so our city right now is undertaking a visioning process for what is called our community corner, which if you go down Pinole and you drive into Pinole, that's the corner of Tenet Avenue and San Pablo Avenue. It's a wonderful corner right now, but it could be better. And we're really actually engaging the entire community and what you'd like to see there. So a fun little tool we've created is if you go to PinoleCommunityCorner.com, that's PinoleCommunityCorner.com, you'll be able to basically add your thoughts on what the corner of Tenet Avenue and San Pablo Avenue should look like. We've had great things, like folks said we should have like a green town square. Someone said we should have like an ice skating ring. Someone else just said, hey, why don't we put a couple benches there and just make it at least seatable, like somewhere somebody can walk and have lunch in Pinole. We're really open to whatever ideas folks want, but this is again a way for us to really engage the public and the future of Pinole, but most importantly, the revitalization of downtown Pinole, where most of our small business community really lies. Small businesses are our families, right? There are uncles, there's our dads, there are moms, and they're, our neighbors, and they have been so hit by the pandemic. And so our excitement is building this project, which also helps them to grow their own small businesses. So we just encourage folks to look at that website, but more importantly, just make sure that we can share out this information. Again, Pinole, I'm so proud to serve as the mayor of this beautiful, diverse, and vibrant city, and looking forward to, again, thinking about ways that we can support each other as, I would say our revolution mayors, but progressive mayors who are thinking about all different communities and bringing them into these visions, because that is what the work is. So yeah, I'll keep it there. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share out this work. And thank you for your partnership. And most importantly, thank you for your commitment to building a more equitable California.
Okay, Devin, thank you so much. We have one person with a hand up, and I think that's the only question we're going to have time for, unfortunately. Cordell, please ask your question and unmute.
Yes, can you hear me, Carol? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
Yeah,
so good evening. Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you.
So Devin. Hello, Devin. Where did
Devin, can you unmute?
Sure, hi.
Yes, you mentioned about Tenet Avenue. Have you talked to can you provide an update on where we at regarding the installing some speed bumps along that area, because this is a dangerous area?
Sure. Actually, that's the first time I've heard about speed bumps on Tenet Avenue. Oh, you said Tenet Avenue. I thought you meant San Pablo. So yeah, we're actually, so Tenet Avenue, thank you for that background, Cordell. Tenet Avenue is a long street in Pinole. One of the things that we're doing, largely because of a death we had in August of 2021, is we're installing not only speed bumps, but we're installing a number of safety infrastructures and pedestrian safety infrastructures that will hopefully not necessarily only slow down that road, but also provide a way for folks to center themselves around not just driving down that road, but really downtown area. Something like high yield signs, or excuse me, slow road signs that we're doing. We're also creating bulb outs on our streets in Tenet Avenue, all of our cross streets. So that really, again, will make Pinole and the downtown area a little bit more walkable. That's a different project than our community corner, but that is ongoing. And for the next year, we'll be implementing those different safety measures.
Okay, great. Devin, thank you so much for being here. I know you were doing 20 things before you could get here. Anyway,
Listen, just trying to be a good cousin to make dinner sometimes. My
oh,
cousin's
okay.
birthday is today, so
Okay, great. Okay, we're
thanks
gonna
for
move on. Two of our speakers are not here yet. I don't know if they'll be here or not. We're gonna move on to a whole different thing than candidates. We're fortunate today to have Hank Pelletier speaking on participatory budgeting. Hank is fairly well known around, author, speaker, nonprofit founder and director. He's founded the Humanist Global Charity. And tonight he's going to speak about something different, which is a democracy for people. Hank, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So I actually have a little speech here. So if I sound scripted, it's because I am. We the people can control our city money. 3 steps for participatory budgeting. Do we live in cities that have the same wretched problems year after year after year, no matter who gets elected? Do we want progressive reforms, but the city councils are too cautious to adopt them? Are we amazed when other cities and other regions do incredible projects and embarrassed when our cities do not? Do we want a cure for our civic frustration? Participatory budgeting can be the answer. The name is a bit dull, but the concept is radical because participatory budgeting is direct, pure democracy. Citizens decide how the budget is spent. Citizens grab the purse strings of government. Citizens bypass representatives who don't voice their concerns. Citizens enjoy the responsibility of creating their own habitat. Citizens guide their neighborhoods toward the future they want. Citizens directly create and fund their own ideas, their own projects to tackle urban dilemmas like housing, policing, employment, education, recreation, and health. So, participatory budgeting, where did it come from? In Brazil, 1989, the city of Porto Alegre, population 1.2 million. The Workers' Party won the city election. They were critical of representative democracy, so they decided to hand power over to the people. The Porto Alegre government officials gave every single city resident the power to individually decide how their specific $1,200 was spent. So what was the result of this? The health and education budget increased from 13% to 40% in 10 years. The number of schools quadrupled. Road building in poor neighborhoods went up 500%. New public housing units that sheltered 1,700 in 1986 sheltered 27,000 in 1989. 5,556 projects were initiated by citizens and 82% were completed, and tax delinquency was reduced. 39% more tax dollars were collected. So what kinds of projects were funded or not funded with participatory budgeting? What happened was social equity plans were prioritized over upper class economic gains. For example, a 5-star hotel was rejected, but a public park was funded. What happened after this experiment at Porto Alegre? What happened was participatory budgeting spread throughout the world. It is now active in 1,500 cities, towns, and school districts. In Brazil, it is active in 140 cities and towns. In Bolivia and Peru, it is implemented in all local governments. In Europe, it is in dozens of cities, notably in Spain, Portugal, and Italy. It is also in India, South Korea, China, South Africa. In the USA, it is active or being experimented with in New York, Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, Seattle, and in Northern California, it is either active or in planning stages in Vallejo, Sacramento, Merced, San Francisco, and Oakland. Now, I mentioned that participatory budgeting is being examined in Oakland, but there's no other cities or towns in Alameda or Contra Costa counties where participatory budgeting is being looked at. The East Bay is one of the most progressive regions in the USA. We know that. So why is this region, excepting Oakland, far behind the rest of the world in participatory budgeting. I said in the beginning that the name participatory budgeting is boring, so let's now call it the people's budget. And my question is, how can all the towns and cities in Alameda and Contra Costa County get a people's budget? I mentioned 3 steps in the title, so I'll do that now. Step number 1, organize a strong coalition. To get a people's budget, it is important to enlist the support of all the dozens of progressive local groups. Our revolution needs to ally with everyone large and small. The people's budget needs a long, impressive, intimidating list of supporting organizations. Number 2 step, draft a proposal and take it to city halls. The majority of people's budgets around the world only control a small percentage of their city funds. Porto Alegre controlled around 20%, and most control far less than that. I suggest starting with 10% because it is not terribly threatening. We could deliver a people's budget proposal to mayors and city council members in our counties and ask for their endorsements. We could let them know that the coalition will support their re-elections only if they endorse the people's budget. The 3rd step, perfectly implement the people's budget and demand a larger percentage each succeeding year. If Alameda and Contra Costa County citizens are happy with the changes instigated by the 10% allotted, they will be motivated to assume responsibility for increasingly larger percentages. Ask for 20% the next year, 30% the following year, and keep asking for more. To conclude this, let's have our revolution guide our region towards empowering its citizenry with participatory budgeting. Thank you.
All right. I noticed Nelson Tam put a couple comments. Would anybody in the chat, would anybody like to make a comment or ask a question? How about you, Nelson? Yeah. No? Okay. Okay, I see one hand up. Kalima?
Hi there, everyone. Yeah, sorry. I know that sometimes when I use the color-coded hand, it's a little bit hard to see. So hi, Hank. Thank you for your presentation. This is Councilmember Pryforce of the city of Emeryville.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alexa, turn right light off. So what happens a lot is especially as a new council member, you're told constantly how much power you don't have, and that all of it rests pretty much on the city manager. And so I wonder if perhaps a participatory budgeting or the people's budget is something that there could be a regional conference on and then we can invite the city managers to. And so it wouldn't be a violation of Brown Act, so you wouldn't have to worry about too many council members in the same room, and then maybe a few council members can attend, but that is something that can be sort of introduced to them, because I believe that Paul, who our new city council member in Emeryville, is a really amazing guy, that he may be open to it, or it may be something that can be introduced and be slow rolled eventually once our council becomes a little bit more progressive. But yeah, so I was wondering if that, and then the other part is I don't know where Cal Cities is. They said that they're not political, whatever, but perhaps there be a presentation for new mayors and new council members with Cal Cities to present something like that to many of their to their forums, so that is sort of introduced. But I think it sounds great. Anything that allows the people to have voice in how their money is being spent to enrich their lives and communities and streets, that is definitely what I'm supportive of.
Yeah, that's great. I actually wrote this originally for I'm co-organizing a Berkeley People's Assembly, so I actually that was my first intention, was to present it to the Berkeley People's Assembly. And there's a lot of talk in Berkeley about how the the city manager is a very, powerful person. And so it's, anything we do has to go through them. But I agree with what you said, that I didn't mention it earlier, that participatory budgeting is a great way to get the citizenry to appreciate democracy and get them involved in democracy, because it's really easy to not feel like you're in a democracy when all you do is vote every 2 or 4 years, and then you lose, your candidate doesn't win. But this is a way to keep people actively involved in democracy on an ongoing basis.
Okay, let's see, we have a hand up. Michael?
Yes, this concept of people's budget is really a great one. You mentioned that you worked with the city of Berkeley a little bit. I was peripherally involved with a little as well. The powerfulness of the city manager is really apparent in this case.
Mm-hmm.
The question becomes, the people who are involved scream and yell, and the end result is just one single flick of finger by the city manager, the whole thing is shut down. It becomes very disencouraging and disempowering. How do we overcome that obstacle and get through the city manager? The question becomes then, how do we execute this rather than just scream and yell outside of the wall?
Yeah. I don't have an answer to your question. I know that every city council is set up in a different kind of way. And in some cities, city managers have more power than in other cities. And so I know, there's like a little bit of small talk in Berkeley about trying to make it so that the city manager position is perhaps not as powerful as it presently is. And that would help. Any other questions
or comments?
I have a comment on how things get agendized in Concord. Obviously, the council can't speak about things that aren't on the agenda, but if the city manager is aware of potentially 3 votes for an item, it can make its way to the agenda so that it can be discussed in the public forum. So a lot of times it may need to come from the community. Community needs to push for that, but also not just in the form of public comment. The community also needs to be reaching out to whoever represents them on the council. Like in Concord, we have district elections, so that all of the council members are hearing from the community that this is something that that they want talked about. So it's not just a matter of going and speaking this at a public comment period.
Yeah, I mentioned Oakland is working on this. I didn't mention Vallejo, but Vallejo has had participatory budgeting for several years. Also, there's participatory budgeting in a lot of school districts in the United States, and so that could be something that's kind of inspiring, and a lot of participatory budgeting asks that children from 16 years old and older get to vote on making the decisions on projects. And I'm sympathetic to what you're saying. I actually don't live in Berkeley. I live in Piedmont, and I have tried for years to get people in Piedmont interested, and they're not. So I've kind of switched over to, trying to get people in Berkeley interested.
And Emeryville, I might point out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, would anybody else like to ask a question or make a comment or say that they're going to take an action on this?
Just a clarifying question. When you said that they weren't in Piedmont, that they weren't receptive, was that from the sort of top down, or was it from the sort of bottom up?
It was a bottom up kind of thing. It's just like something I like, and I haven't tried all that hard. I just put it on Nextdoor for like 6 months, and I never got anybody saying anything. And it's just, and a lot of people just don't want to, they don't want to they like to elect people every 2 or 4 years and then just not be involved in politics. So, but I think it's a chance. Participatory budgeting is it's kind of interesting that it's all over the world, but not particularly. It's a little bit weaker in the US than other parts of the world, and it's not particularly powerful in California. But it could be. I left my name and phone number in the chat box if anybody wants to contact me about this.
Yeah, you know, somebody mentioned maybe a conference or something. Yeah, maybe we could talk about doing something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there might be, there's an awful lot of cities, I'm gonna guess 40 or 50 in the East Bay. And, you know, each city that adopts it puts a little bit of pressure on all the cities that haven't adopted it. So if it happens in Emeryville or Pinole or someplace like that, or Concord, and then it's you know, the next door town might become interested afterwards.
What I
Okay.
can do real quick. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Go
Carol.
ahead, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying what I could do real quick. You know, I'm sorry, I'm a hacker. Many of y'all know me. So what I can do real quick is at the next city council meeting, there's going to be a discussion about some activity that the residents of Emeryville aren't really interested in, but it's going to cost a lot of money. That one of the members of the city council has been pushing. And so what I'll do is that I'll name drop participatory budgeting. And Laura's like looking at like, oh my God, Cleveland, it's all devious.
Yeah.
I'm gonna name drop it, and then I'll follow up with residents and see what they say, and then maybe, you know, down the line we could probably have like some sort of informational workshop like the Mayor Murphy is also doing. So
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I mentioned that Porto Alegre gave out about like 20% of their budget to citizens, but a lot of them are a lot less. Like even like some of them only give out like 1 or 2%, but even just anything is kind of empowering to the citizens and makes them feel like, oh wow, I can actually like, you know, put forward my pet project and maybe it'll get funded. So a real small amount shouldn't be very, you know, threatening at all, and it could make the citizens really happy.
Carol, did you see my note in the chat?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. Okay, Hank, I'm gonna get in touch with you like in the next week.
Okay.
And we'll see if we can get something together with a few of us.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you so much for coming. I find this just a very amazing opportunity for people to be involved in something democratic for the people. Anyway, okay, we're going to move on to probably our last guest, and then we'll have announcements. We have a couple people that want to make announcements. So our next guest is Janani Ramachandran, and I believe Richard Lee is going to introduce her. Is that right? Could you unmute?
Yeah, Carol, thanks so much. And Janani, great to see you as always, that you're here. I'll just keep it short. Janani has been a good friend of our Rev for a while now. And I remember meeting her about 2 years ago. I just graduated out of college, found a job here, and knew I was going to be in the East Bay long term. And so I tried to find some candidates, some good causes to rally behind. And I was watching a candidate forum for 8018 when she was running, and I was like, who is this person? She is really, really good. And learned more about her, and she was really good. And as many folks here, I imagine, have had the opportunity to go out and canvas, knock doors for her and such. I remember thinking she had the best ground game and field program I think I've seen for a local candidate, maybe my entire life. There were just so many people every time that were just willing to knock on doors for her, talk to voters for her, lit drop for her. And that only happens when you have a candidate who really inspires everyday people to get out and vote and rally behind somebody like that. And so going into her Oakland City Council race this past year, she carried a lot of that momentum with her and came up against some very, very powerful special interests and Oakland establishment powers, and still won by quite a significant margin. And we're really excited, obviously, to see what she's going to be doing now that she's on the Oakland City Council for the folks in District 4, as well as Oakland as a whole. And so, Janani, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Really honored to be here as always. Thank you, Richard, for that very kind introduction. Like I've mentioned before, realistically, less than 2 years, I was not involved in politics at all. My entire career was direct services. I was a legal aid attorney for domestic violence survivors, tenants, workers. And getting into politics kind of on a whim of being frustrated during the pandemic by many of our policymakers really spearheaded me deciding to take the plunge. But really what I absolutely owe this communities and this movement success to is so many of you right here, and the strength of our revolution and many of the other groups that many of you are a part of, progressive organizations that believed in me and that believed in the power of someone ready to challenge the status quo. And so I have been in office for, as of tomorrow, exactly 4 weeks. It has been quite the journey so far. Every day is a challenge. It is Oakland City Hall after all, but I am finding it inspiring that I have a pretty progressive set of colleagues on City Council right now. I'm finding it hopeful that many residents have had faith in us. Like Richard mentioned, we gathered about 70% of the vote. And this is in Oakland District 4, which many consider to be the most conservative district in Oakland. And that's important to me because it shows that people are ready for change. Sure, maybe not all these residents are going to identify, maybe not all those 70% of residents identify as a progressive or as a Bernie supporter or anything like that, but many believe in the same ideals. Many believe in the need for equality, the need for raising the minimum wage, universal health care, and at a more local level, many of the reforms to community and public safety, infrastructure, and economic development that I'm hoping to help champion. And I say that as District 4 was not so long ago, less than 20 years ago, the only district in Oakland governed by a Republican actually for about 20 years almost. So I think it shows a shift in the wave of not just political leaders, but also the way that residents are feeling and their interest in actual change. And shout out to some of the residents here on the call, like Nelson, one of our fierce supporters and longtime champions of the movement. This really is a movement, and I'm so excited to continue to spearhead it forward with many of you. Oakland is on the brink of a lot of exciting changes. For example, the macro program is one of the things that was championed by some of our progressive city council members a couple of years ago, but really only now starts to have effect. The macro program basically tries to bring civilian responders into non-emergency crisis situation as an alternative to police. For pretty much almost 2 years and never really had the resources to make that happen. So I am now part of a council that believes in the power of this program and wants to actually see it actualized. Like that, voters just passed a progressive business tax just in November, which will showcase for the first time what it means to allow corporations to pay their fair share if they're doing business in Oakland, while at the same time making sure that small mom and pop businesses are able to survive and thrive in the way that they deserve. So these are just two examples of some of the larger scale changes that I know is in the horizon for Oakland. And You know, winning this election with the margin that we did was the first step. We have a long way to go when it comes to making sure the changes that we want to see actually happen, and to make sure that we are constantly fighting for the goals that we say that we're for, and continue to convert people along the way to recognize progressive ideals. So once again, thank you so much, Our Revolution, for your support over these past 2 years. It means the world and is a huge part of why we won the day that we did. So thank you.
Okay, would anybody like to ask Johnny a question? Don't be shy. No. Okay, well, we are all just thrilled that you were here. We're thrilled that you won. Oh, we got some hands up. Let's see, who have we got? Alfred, did you want to ask something?
Sure. I saw you were in the Laurel district recently. What was the highlight of the weekend?
So one of the exciting things about having run a very grassroots field campaign is continuing to be active in the district and in and around constituents all the time. So this past weekend, the Laurel there are many Lunar New Year celebrations going around town, but the Laurel is actually home to a very sizable Chinese immigrant community, and Jean Quan was the original founder of the Lion Dance procession that basically blessed each of Laurel Business District businesses, and really attempted to build community and make sure we get more foot traffic into our businesses and start the year off on the right foot. So this is one example of the kind of community building events we want to continue to do. We will have, and our district office will hopefully be able to spearhead more events like this, including stay tuned for more information for Black History Month.
All right, we have a hand up here. Joanna?
Thank you, Sherry. Hi, Janani. I'm wondering, how can members of Our Revolution support you better as you're now trying to make big changes in Oakland?
Absolutely. So we have just started to launch our District 4 Community Advisory Council. So if you or others in the district are interested in being part of our core group of advisors and neighborhood liaisons in a way, please feel free to let us know. We are also next month going to be launching our volunteer corps. So it doesn't matter where you live, anywhere in the Bay Area, if you want to continue to stay involved and engaged in our movement, please tap into our volunteer corps. So it'll involve a bunch of tasks. We might host community events, we might host panel discussions, a variety of things that doesn't only encompass residents of District 4, but really is of importance to the entire city of Oakland and the entire East Bay. So we'll send out an email to my mailing list. If you're not on my mailing list, I will send a link in the chat to how to sign up. But we will keep folks aware of opportunities to tap in and volunteer. There's plenty of work to do in many ways. Oakland's District 4 is a laboratory for innovative ideas. And if we can make some really impactful things happen here, it can spread to some of the lesser resourced parts of Oakland, and then entirely to the rest of the Bay Area. So please tap in. What happens in District 4 absolutely spreads to other places, and we need all of your support in this process. We would love it.
Okay, we have time for one more comment or question with Janani. And then we'll have to move on. Okay, Janani, thank you so much. We always welcome you here.
Thank you.
Anytime you want us.
Carol, sorry to
where to
interrupt.
get
I think
hold of us.
Kalima actually had his hand up.
Who?
Kalima.
Oh, again? Okay, I don't see your hand, but I see you laughing
Sorry.
there. Okay, you're on.
Sorry, no, I just wanted to say that when I first when I first decided to run, very new to politics, didn't know anything. And even though it was sort of my instincts that kind of kept me away from a lot of dark money influences, I really was lost. No one gave me a sheet and said, here are the Democratic clubs, here are the Democratic communities, and so, but it was really people like Johnny, Mayor Murphy, Lisa Victory, my AD slate, that kind of found me sort of lost in the wilderness of politics. And so I hope that there will be ways to welcome new candidates, to get them connected to the RREV community. But I just want you all to know that the trust and the investment that you placed in Johnny and many of the others, it's sound, because they were able to find me and help me to understand the process and make me feel welcome. So true progressives, we were able to kind of just find each other by magic, and so I just want to thank Johnny for being magical.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, yeah, you are very magical. Okay, I think our final speaker never got here, so we won't have that part. We're going to move into announcements now. At our meetings, we try to have a few minutes where anybody can make an announcement or just say, hi, I'm so-and-so, it's the first time I've been here, or whatever, anything they want. And we're going to start with Adi Alvera. You ready, Adi?
Yes, thank you. Let's see. Nice to see everybody. Thank you for hanging in there till the end. Many of you know that I'm part of Concord Communities Alliance and former co-founder of Local Our Revolutions. And lately we've been dealing with some pretty shady stuff in Concord, as you guys are all aware. And this coming Tuesday, our city council is going to consider hiring non-union, low-wage, non-civil, sorry, I was just running, workers as private security and porters to patrol the downtown area. Now, our downtown area is one of the nicest, very few nice downtowns in the Bay Area. And we already think it's nice and clean. So when our Todos Santos Business Association wants to hire private security, it means that really they want to harass the homeless like they did in Berkeley. So we're asking for people who have experience happening in your city where council tried to hire private security or fund a third vendor to hire private security, instead of not funding it, because there's already police harassing the homeless. Let's be real, they're already doing it. And now they just want to pass the buck to private security when we have other solutions already going to try to solve our homeless problem. Laura Nakamura, who spoke earlier, is going to be sitting as a council member at a working strategy group where it's going to get $4.5 million to have solutions towards homelessness. And we don't think they should spend $500,000 hiring private security as a pilot project, because what we'll see is unsupervised, no control private security harassing our in-house population, and just does not work for us. So we're looking for people who know this experience, like in Berkeley or San Francisco or other areas that saw this happen and not work for them, to come to Concord City Council meeting. And I'll go ahead and put the information in the chat where you'll have the Zoom info. It's also on our CCA, Concord Communities Alliance Facebook page as a post. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. We just got an announcement here from Cordial Hindler that we're invited to the El Cerrito Chamber of Commerce Mixer this coming Friday, the 10th, the 10th at 5:30 p.m. And that's at 514 Lounge, on San Pablo Avenue. Okay, it's in the chat. Okay, Alfred.
Thank you. Speaking of budgeting, one of the biggest potential budget crises coming up is with our Bay Area mass transit agencies. They were given money in 2020 by the federal government. However, as we all know, the pandemic went on longer than we expected, and so that money is running out. And without additional funding from the state government, there could be massive service cuts to transit. We're talking about no transit on weekends, that bad. However, there is an opportunity to save transit, and that's by contacting our state legislators and letting them know that right now, as they're putting together the state budget, to make transit operations funding a priority. So give your state legislators a call. Thank you.
Okay, would anybody else like to say anything, make an announcement?
Desmond has his hand up, Carol. Desmond has his
Oh,
hand
okay.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I just want to thank our revolution for being so impactful in these recent elections. A lot of these elected officials and the people we wanted in office wouldn't be able to do it without you. So I thank you. I also want to thank you, Hank, for bringing together and mentioning a people's budget, right? I think that is the best way, having a community budget. And that's what our elected officials should be doing. Our city council members should be having town halls in their districts, right? Finding out what the people want, what the people need, and then taking it. A lot of times that doesn't happen. and it should. I think on top of but doing that extra work, getting other people involved in other organizations and having their budget and then presenting to the council is a wonderful idea. There's also an organization here in Oakland, I think, that does it as well. They're small. I'm going to put them in the chat. I think it's Community Democracy Project. And I think working with them or kind of bringing that to the people, that would help. Piedmont, probably, they got all their needs met, so they're probably not, they're like, we don't need anything here, so they're not involved. And it is time consuming, right? People are working 2 jobs and hustling to live in the Bay, are working, making enough ends meet. So it does take time and energy to go to these, and having them at the correct time. And even if the council does have a town hall, is it at a time where people could attend? So I think that is important. I think on top of that, having participatory budget is also tagging along a zero-based budget, right? Making each department prove why they need funding for either staffing or services, right? Subtracting it and starting from zero, and then they have to prove what they need. So I like the participatory budgeting, sorry, getting tongue-tied, and also zero-based budgeting is my ideal when it comes to budgeting. Other than that, I was gonna say something else, but now I forgot. But regarding the council, I'm not sure how it is in Berkeley, but city council can fire their city managers. Not saying you necessarily need to do it, but the city manager should be taking direction from the city council and the other way around. City council makes the budget, right? The legislators make the budget. That is one of their tools and one of their mechanisms of control that they can use to cut positions, lower positions, or lower funding for different departments and services. So I think some of the city council members kind of need to put pressure on the city manager of what they want to see, and needs to be implemented, or we're going to cut funding for that. If it's not representing the people, it doesn't need to get done. That's it. But thank you, DSA, for all the work that you've done. Thank you for all those that supported our slate. My name's Desmond Jeffries, member of the People Slate. We're really defining and redefining what progressive means.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're not DSA. I don't think you caught that. You meant to say OREB. and
I
you
mean,
said
so our
DSA.
revolution, sorry, and our revolution. Sorry, our revolution. My bad. I was going to different,
Although some of us are in
different meetings.
both.
Yeah. But our revolution, thank you for the work that you're doing. We still got a lot to do. Thank you for the
Yes,
prayer.
we're just starting. Okay, thank you so much. Would somebody else like to speak? Or just say, hi, I'm so-and-so. It's the first time I've ever been here. Or anything. Okay, folks. Sherry, do you want to lead us in our cheer of organized?
Okay, so do all of you know the sort of mantra that we like to end with of when we organize, we win. And I think in the election in November, that was very, very apparent that all of us coming together and working and for these candidates, and we won. So are you ready? When we
Everybody unmute.
Unmute.
Okay.
Organized.
Woohoo!
When we organize, we
When
win.
we organize, we win.
Okay,
When we organize,
Come
we win.
on,
We win.
enthusiastically. When we organize, we win.
Very disorganized.
Good night, everyone.
Okay,
And I'd like to
everyone,
thank
thank
everybody
you so
that,
much for
that
being
went to
here.
our website too.
Yeah, thank you for being here so much.
you,
Thank you
Sherry.
for your
Good job.
donations.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. It's just been great.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Night.
I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.